All right, welcome back. On RealCopStoriesVideos.com, 358 cop stories. Look them up. There's some gross alerts, about 10% of them. Really gross stuff. I still can't forget it. We have a lot of foot pursuits, a lot of, not routine, a lot of really fun police stuff. We have a dead body exploding in a room. You want to get around that. We have a lady that got her face eaten off by her poor little dog that was there for 3 days and couldn't, they do that. If you have a little puppy, you better make sure grandma doesn't pass out on the floor. Or a little flumpy wants to eat something wet. Get my drift? Okay, anyway. So, but attached to that, we have 147 questions. And people sending me questions, I answer them directly, and then we're putting them on video. So you want to ask me a question, go to this website, or go email me at, not website, rsbcopstories@gmail.com, and I'll answer your question like we're doing now. I'm answering an ongoing investigation, or an ongoing question about internal affairs. Talk to me, okay? I've been explaining what Talk to Me personally, and now I've got some things where I was involved in some of this stuff. I'll give you another one. I was working a gang unit, and we had several personalities, and we also inherited, unfortunately, more officers. Then we inherited like 25 officers. We had like 10. And as you get bigger, you have to have a bigger command staff. So he brought in a lieutenant. Last days of his career, he's the kind of guy who liked to have people kiss his butt. He liked to pick out certain people as his buddies, certain officers as his friends. He thought he could play basketball, so he had a basketball team, and so those guys were all his kiss asses, and the rest of us worker bees were getting screwed over. Okay. So here's where internal affairs comes in. I had a case with one of the guys, my partner and I both had a case. And so he tells me he's going to go on vacation. This is how internal affairs can be misused. So he went and when you go on vacation, you have to clear it with the district attorney's office if you have a case that involves the district attorney. So he did. He got a name and said he's going to be on vacation, so the district attorney will hold the case. Well, what happened was they changed DAs, and so like a week later, my partner was off 3 or 4 days. He's off for like a month. The case was called. I get a subpoena. I go to court, and my partner was the key witness. So I go in there. It was a different DA. I didn't know what DA he was dealing with. I just went in there, checked in. And we're so-and-so. Well, he's on vacation. He got approval to go on vacation. Not through this office. Uh-oh. Well, he's supposed to be here. He got a subpoena. I know, but he goes, oh, I got to call your department about this. He got approval from, I didn't know the DA was. Somebody. Okay, he was somebody. Obviously, this DA was in a bad mood. He calls the department. The department sends him to this lieutenant, which did not like my partner, because we were not the basketball guys. He immediately called internal affairs because the DA's involved, and the lieutenant made a personnel complaint against this employee, which he didn't like. So the employee isn't even there. He's gone for a month. He took an extended vacation with his family somewhere, so he was only gone a couple of days, and this thing starts coming out. And so, the wheels of justice don't stop because you're on vacation. He was gone like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I don't know. So all this stuff's going on while he's gone. Okay, so a week later, internal affairs calls me in there. I tell him what I told the DA, and they just pretty much ignored me. So, well, he's supposed to be there. They want to get him. The lieutenant wants to get him. The sergeant wants to get him. Didn't like him. The sergeant was a Latino sergeant. He didn't like any Caucasian guys. Didn't even like me for that matter. But he was, another racist in here. That story on my Real Cop Stories videos of a racist sergeant. Here's another one. He didn't like him. He's Latino, which is really strange. The sergeant, the lieutenant was a white guy. They just were gunning for any of us because we were kind of like rebels. We didn't kind of ignored them and laughed at them, and they didn't like that. Okay, so they were making a case against him. Okay, he came back, and of course they interviewed him, and he said he got the name of this DA. Blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. So they couldn't find the DA. He was off also. Do you have it in writing? Well, no, but he gave me over the phone. You got it. Okay, so internal affairs is involved. He said, we're going to give you 4 days without pay for failing to go to a court and lying on a statement, all that stuff. They're trying to rush this through so fast, they didn't even talk to the DA involved. Okay? So he said, I'm not taking 4 days. Okay, now he's going to take a trial board. Now, a trial board is where you have 3 captains try you. It's like a court trial. The internal affairs presents the case. You get a lieutenant and above to represent you, and you go and it's an administrative hearing, almost like a court case. Well, so they got this set up. Lieutenant's there, this asshole lieutenant, his sergeant's there. I was in the lobby. I heard a lot of this. I was in the anteroom waiting to testify. So this is what I heard, because my partner told me this that night after we went and celebrated. They started saying that they interviewed, they couldn't get a hold of the officer, he was on vacation, and they interviewed this, they interviewed the DA, which was there at the time I went there, had no knowledge of this. You can see it's coming. They're trying to kangaroo court him, man. They're trying to hammer him. And he's in there listening to all this. So then so they gave their testimony. It took about half a day. All the prosecutory, is that the right word, against him, all the advocates and everybody. Okay, now it's his turn to defense. So his defense rep gets up and says, I want to call District Attorney so-and-so, who had just been back that morning from vacation and knew nothing about this until he got called in the office. He got a call from his rep. So he comes to the hearing mad as hell, this DA, because he gave this officer time off, and now this officer's going to be prosecuted, persecuted, whatever. Okay. He gets on that stand, and he says, and the defense says, did you talk? Yes, I did. And when did you talk to him? I got the dates right here. I have carry a on-duty, what do you call it, date book, putting on all the contacts I have with officers on here, and he's right here. I told him at 9:15 in the morning he was excused until so-and-so. And I guess the board, what we heard, I heard this from partners, they all looked at each other. And the head captain looks over at Internal Affairs, are you aware of this? No, we were never told. They were not told by the lieutenant and the sergeant that they had this DA that gave him permission. They only gave him the name of the DA that said, I don't know what you're talking about, the one I talked to. Okay? So it's one of those E.F. Hutton moments back in the old days where everybody just gets real quiet for like 10 seconds. They're all looking at each other. And so now the lieutenant's there and the sergeant, they're sitting behind. He goes, did you notify the district attorney's office did you notify Internal Affairs that there was this district attorney that just came in this morning and gave him a permission to leave? They just looked at him. Is that yes or no, Lieutenant? He looked over at the sergeant. Sergeant looks back at him. Sergeant, is that yes or no? They wouldn't answer. They just sat there because he got caught. Okay? I raised two daughters. You walk in, they got cake on their hands, and there's a cake with finger marks in it. Gee, they might have done it. Okay? So the head captain says, oh, by the way, he says, this case is over. He says the officer is exonerated of all charges to be expunged from his record. He says, I order Internal Affairs to order up 2 internal investigations against that lieutenant and that sergeant, and this hearing is over. And all of a sudden, the doors open up, and they're coming out, and they're smiling. I'm looking like, what happened? I'll tell you later. And the DA's over here, and both DAs are there. And they're over there in the corner chewing each other out because one DA the DA that got him off put a note in the package, in the file. They have these big files with all the witnesses. It's in there. He's got the file. He's showing them. And they're having an argument because I didn't see it. Well, you just jeopardize an officer's days off without pay because you didn't see something? And he's already told you, because I told the DA when he came in, the good DA, the one that, I told him when he came in before he went to interview, I said, I told the other DA that you gave him an excuse. Son of a bitch. He was mad about that. He was mad about the whole thing. The DA was. That nobody listened to him. Well, he got in there, boy, and they listened to him big time. Okay, so then, month goes by. How funny, huh? Month goes by. We're going to be interviewed again now by Internal Affairs, and now it's the lieutenant and the sergeant. This is great, okay? So they came back recommending the lieutenant 20 days off without pay for false and misleading statements. A month off, basically, without pay. Okay, it's coming up. So he had, remember, I told you, at the end of his career, he just retired. Once you retire, you don't have to deal with it. You're gone. He retired. The other sergeant was a Sergeant 2, which is with a rocker. It's a promotion from Sergeant 1. He was demoted in rank to Sergeant 1 and given 22 days without pay because he only had like 14 years on. So he can't leave after 23 years or whatever like the lieutenant did and run out of town. And that was pretty cool because he was an a-hole. Okay, and so it was pretty nice. Okay, and I'll tell you a story a little bit off track. How much time do I have left? How much time for a little off track here?
You've got like 6 minutes.
Okay. Prior before all this happened, I'm sorry, I should have done this first, but it didn't really involve Internal Affairs, but I'll tell you the mindset of this sergeant, okay? He was a patrolman in our division before he made sergeant, and he was what we called Pipeline. That was his nickname, because he would always know all the rumors that were going on. He knew what officer was dating somebody. He knew what officer was getting divorced. He knew the secretary was dating this guy. He knew he was the Mr. Rumor Control. So we called him the Pipeline. He knew everything. Okay, so before this Internal Affairs thing came, before he came to gangs, he got transferred. Usually when you make sergeant in a division, you get transferred to another division. That way you meet new people and you have to direct new people. It's hard to be a supervisor to guys that you were partners with. It doesn't work out that way. So anyway, so I'm downtown when I made detective years later, and I'm walking down the hallway of the main headquarters downtown, and I see him coming at me. He's in uniform, and I go, "Hey, Pipeline!" because we were partners a couple times and we worked in the same roll call and everything, and he had a really look on his face, weird look on his face. And it gets closer and closer. How's it going, man? He goes, hey. He goes, what? He goes, that's not my name, Pipeline. My name is so-and-so. My name is Sergeant so-and-so. Can you imagine? And talk about it. And I look, that's why I'm saying this internal affairs thing later on was not a surprise. So I go, oh, really? Oh, by the way, he looked at me. I'm a detective so-and-so, sergeant. We're both the same rank. He looks at me, he goes, all right, see you later, sergeant. Walked away, he just looked at me. I told my other buddies, I told my guys from home, I called the guys from the division, they go, really? He goes, I heard he turned into an asshole. Well, he's an asshole now, pardon my French. So now back to the story, I couldn't give you this first, then you would think, what the hell is he talking about? So when this came up and I heard, and we were working gangs, I remember when this happened, then it doesn't surprise me that he went this way because he was basically a guy that was always latched on to somebody higher than him and you know, run with the lieutenant, in other words, his boy, his adjutant, or whatever you want to call it. And that's not good. You should not be doing that. You should be fair to everybody. And he wasn't. So that was kind of unique when he did that. Yeah, he let me know he was a sergeant. Really? You stand there in uniform with the stripes? Gee, I thought you were a munchkin or something from, I thought you were from the island of Barak or something. Who the hell knows where you're from? So that was interesting. So that's a little internal affairs stories. Most of it I heard because my partner told me that night after it happened. We went out and celebrated. And then the next day off, we went to the academy after work and had a bunch of beers and toast each other and called those guys bad names and had a good old time. And we even roasted and hosted and praised internal affairs. We hardly ever do that. What are you doing that for? We had to explain the story to these guys. Hey, all right, you know, because everybody hates them. But they kind of got this right. They kind of didn't because they were told to do it, and then they went after him with a vengeance. They got one guy who nobody liked anyway. He retired. The other guy got demoted. He was gone. So that worked out pretty good. Funny how you got to watch you use the internal affairs to get people, and then turn around and get you. Okay, you never know what's going to happen here. Reverse roles real fast. And I guess those captains are pretty mad about that happening too because they waste their time. You know, they have a lot of things they got to do, and a lot of these boards they have to convene, and to have somebody come in here with a really weak case, and then the first witness out of the gate for the defense, this DA just blows you out of the water. The case is done. The lieutenant I knew, he said, you should have seen it. It just folded, you know, it's one of those, it reminded me, he said, remind me of one of those deck of cards where you make a house, you know, out of cards, and you blow the wind and it all just falls down. When he said that, everything just collapsed. And everybody looked at each other, and I'm going, we just won. He told it to the officer, it's over. It's over. You cannot go in there. It's like any other cases. You cannot go in there with a weak case. It goes on evidence. You can't go, I don't like you. You know, nope, not going to work that way. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. Okay? Bye-bye.